My mother-in-law announced my replacement at my own anniversary dinner. Not after the divorce, not after a separation, not even after a fight where everyone could pretend emotions got out of hand. She stood at the head of the table, tapped her spoon against a crystal glass, and smiled at 32 people, while my husband sat beside me with his hand still resting on my chair. Then she said, "Everyone should know the truth. Ethan has already found someone who can give this family what Nora never could." The restaurant went quiet in that careful, hungry way rooms go quiet when people sense humiliation coming. I looked at my husband. He did not look surprised. He looked relieved. His mother continued, 2 weeks. That's all it took him to replace 10 years of disappointment. My fork was still in my hand, my anniversary gift for Ethan, a silver watch engraved with the date of our first apartment, sat unopened beside his plate. And under the table, my phone vibrated with a message from my clinic manager, Dr. Vale, urgent. A patient file review flagged the name Ethan Carlisle. Vasectomy reversal consult from last month. Listed emergency contact, Patricia Carlisle. Patricia was my mother-in-law, Ethan was my husband, and for 7 years, they had let their whole family believe I was the reason we had no children. My name is Nora Vale, and until that night, I thought silence was grace. I thought if people misunderstood me, I did not have to correct every cruel assumption. I thought marriage meant protecting private pain from public conversation. I thought dignity meant letting people talk, because the truth did not need defending. But I learned something in that restaurant. When you keep silent to protect someone who is lying, your silence becomes part of the lie. Ethan and I had been married 10 years. We met before I became Dr. Vale to anyone. Back then, I was 26, exhausted, and finishing my residency in reproductive endocrinology. He was charming in the way men can be when they are not yet required to be honest. He sold medical equipment, knew how to talk to doctors without sounding intimidated, and wore confidence like a tailored jacket. Our first real conversation happened in a hospital hallway at 2 light a.m. The coffee machine had eaten my last dollar, and I was standing there with my forehead against the glass. Wondering if crying over caffeine counted as professional collapse, Ethan walked up, swiped his card, and handed me a coffee. "No doctor should face dawn uncaffeinated," he said. I laughed because I was too tired not to. 3 months later, he knew my schedule better than I did. 6 months later, he brought dinner to the on-call room. 1 year later, he proposed in my tiny apartment with the radiator clanking behind him and my laundry piled on the couch. I said yes because he felt like warmth. My mother had died when I was young. My father, a quiet mechanic with hands always stained from work, raised me alone and taught me 2 things. Pay your debts and never let anyone make shame out of honest effort. He loved Ethan at first. Good manners, Dad said after meeting him, then he paused. But watch if the manners stay when he doesn't get what he wants. I was offended. I was also in love, so I ignored the warning. Ethan's family was different from mine in every visible way. The Carlisles lived in a white colonial house with blue shutters, a circle driveway, and portraits arranged by generation. They had brunches. They had monogrammed towels. They had opinions about table settings in schools their children had not attended yet. At the center of that family was Patricia Carlisle, my mother-in-law. She was not loud. Loud would have been easier. Patricia was controlled. Every insult came wrapped in concern. Every demand arrived disguised as tradition. The first time I met her, she kissed my cheek without touching me and said, "Nora Vale, Ethan tells me you're very ambitious." I smiled. "I love my work." "Yes," she said. "That can be complicated for marriage." That was the first stone, small, polished, easy to dismiss. There would be many more. At our wedding, she told the florist to replace the wildflowers I had chosen with white roses, because, as she explained to the planner, Nora doesn't always understand how things photograph. When Ethan and I bought our first home, she walked through the kitchen and said, "It's sweet. A starter house is good for a couple still figuring out priorities." When I opened my own fertility clinic, Vale Reproductive Health, she told people at Thanksgiving, "Nora helps other women have babies." Isn't that ironic? Everyone laughed softly. Ethan did not. But he also did not stop her. At first, I made excuses for him. "She's your mother," I said once after she joked that my clinic was my substitute child. He rubbed his face. "She doesn't mean it like that." "What other way is there to mean it?" "She's old-fashioned. She's cruel." He got quiet then, the way he always did when truth made him choose. "I'll talk to her," he said. That became one of the great lies of our marriage. I'll talk to her. He never did, or if he did, she never cared. For the first 3 years, people asked when we were having children. At weddings, at holidays, at grocery stores, everywhere. I learned that people consider a woman's body public property the moment she gets married. At first I smiled and said, hopefully someday. Then someday became a wound. Ethan and I tried quietly. Month after month, hope rose and fell with calendar dates. Test strips, whispered prayers I did not admit I was saying. I knew too much medically, which made everything worse. I could not hide inside mystery. I knew the hormone ranges, the failure rates, the odds. After a year, I said we should both get tested. Ethan stiffened. I'm fine. You don't know that. I had a physical. A general physical is not a fertility workup. He threw his keys onto the counter. Nora, don't turn our marriage into one of your patient charts. That hurt. But I was still gentle then. I'm not. I just think we should both know. He agreed eventually, or pretended to. I did my tests first. Everything looked normal. Not perfect. Bodies are not machines. But normal, I told Ethan softly, carefully. Because even good news can become dangerous in a marriage where one person fears being blamed. He nodded. That's good. Your appointment is next week. His face closed. I rescheduled. To when? I'll handle it. He never went. Months later, when I asked again, he said the clinic lost his sample. Then he said the lab was backed up. Then he said he did not want strangers judging him. Then he said maybe God had a timeline. That last one surprised me. Ethan had not mentioned God when his mother mocked my empty nursery. 7 years before that anniversary dinner, he came home one evening with red eyes and a confession I thought was partial but honest. He told me he had a vasectomy in his early 20s. Before we met, he said he had been reckless, terrified of becoming like his father, pressured by an old girlfriend after a pregnancy scare. He said he regretted it. He said he was ashamed. He said he planned to tell me but kept waiting for the right time. And then we were already married, already trying, already hurting. I remember sitting at the kitchen table while the refrigerator hummed behind me. You let me think my body was failing, I whispered. He cried. I know. You let me go through tests alone. I was scared. You'd let your mother make jokes. I didn't know how to tell her. You told me you wanted children. I do. I swear I do. We can look into reversal. We can do sperm retrieval. IVF. Whatever it takes, I just need you not to hate me. That was the moment I should have paused. Instead, I saw his shame and mistook it for accountability. I took his hand. I don't hate you, I said. He cried harder, and because I loved him, I did what I had always done with pain. I organized it. I explained options. Reversal success rates, time since procedure, sperm retrieval, IVF, donor sperm if needed, counseling. I even offered to refer him to another clinic because I could not ethically treat my own husband. He promised he would pursue it. But weeks became months, months became years. He always had a reason. Too much work, too much pressure, his mother's health, a bad quarter at the company. He needed to feel ready. Meanwhile, Patricia's comments became sharper because she believed she knew the story. Or maybe she did know. That is the part that still burns. I used to think Ethan hid the truth from everyone. Later, I learned he had not hidden it from his mother. He had only hidden it from consequences. Patricia began treating my childlessness like a moral defect. At her birthday lunch one year, she handed me a small porcelain baby shoe ornament and said, maybe visualizing motherhood will help. At Christmas, she gave Ethan a leather-bound family tree with blank spaces under his name and said loudly, we left room, just in case miracles happen. When a cousin gave birth, Patricia looked at me across the hospital room and said, some women are simply made for it. I was a fertility doctor. I spent my days sitting with women who had been told their worth lived in a womb. I held their hands through losses, failures, hope, rage. I corrected husbands who said her problem instead of our situation. I built my clinic to be the opposite of the rooms that had hurt me. Then I would go to Carlisle family dinners and sit quietly while my mother-in-law turned me into a cautionary tale. Ethan said, please don't say anything. It would humiliate me. So I didn't. That was love, I thought. Now I know it was self-erasure with a wedding ring on. The clinic became my refuge. Vale Reproductive Health started in a rented suite above a dental office with 3 exam rooms, 2 nurses, 1 embryologist, and me cleaning coffee mugs after closing. 10 years later, we occupied 2 floors in a medical building, had a surgical suite, a counseling wing, a donor coordination team, and satellite partnerships across the state. We treated people with dignity. That was my rule. No jokes about biological clocks, no dismissive language, no blaming one partner before testing both, no allowing relatives to pressure patients in consultation rooms. Privacy was sacred. Consent was sacred. Records were sacred. My staff joked that I could spot a missing signature from across a hallway. They were right. Paper tells stories people try to hide. The proof object that changed my life was a lavender intake folder. All male fertility surgical consults used lavender folders in our system because early on, too many male partner files were misplaced under female patients' records. I hated that assumption, so I color-coded the entire workflow. Lavender meant male factor reproductive care. Inside every lavender folder were identity documents, consent forms, medical history, referral notes, payment records, and emergency contact information. The month before my anniversary dinner, my clinic received a transfer request from a urology partner we sometimes worked with. A patient wanted a vasectomy reversal consultation through one of our affiliated surgeons. Nothing unusual. I never saw the name. As owner and medical director, I did not review every file. My team handled intake. I only stepped in for complex cases, ethical questions, or surgical coordination. The patient used a private email address, paid cash deposit, requested discreet scheduling. Listed a family emergency contact. The name was Ethan Carlisle. But the intake specialist who processed it was new. She did not know my husband's surname because professionally I was Dr. Vale, and personally I kept my marriage private. To her, it was just another file, until Patricia Carlisle called the clinic 3 days before the gala. She demanded to know whether the reversal date could be moved earlier because the family timeline had changed. My receptionist refused to discuss anything without patient authorization. Patricia said, "I am his mother." My receptionist said, "That does not grant medical access." Patricia became insulting. My clinic manager, Hannah, took over the call. Hannah had worked beside me since the dental office days and had the calm voice of a woman who could survive a fire drill, a crying patient, and a broken freezer alarm at the same time. She told Patricia the same thing: no authorization, no information. Patricia snapped, "This is why Dr. Vale's clinic has always been so cold. No wonder she never became a mother." Hannah froze. After the call, she pulled the file. That was when she saw it: Ethan Carlisle, emergency contact, Patricia Carlisle. Scheduled consult, vasectomy reversal. She did not tell me immediately because patient privacy mattered, even when the patient was my husband. She contacted our compliance attorney first. Since I owned the clinic and had a personal conflict, she restricted the file, flagged the inappropriate third-party call, and prepared a conflict notice. That was the message that reached me under the restaurant table. But I am getting ahead of myself. The anniversary dinner was Patricia's idea. Our 10th wedding anniversary was supposed to be quiet. Ethan and I had talked about a weekend at the lake. Maybe no phones, maybe finally having the conversation we had avoided for too long. I had already told my therapist I was tired of living in a marriage where I protected a truth that protected no one back. Then Patricia called. 10 years is significant, she said. The family should celebrate endurance. Endurance, not love. I told Ethan I did not want a big dinner. He said it would mean a lot to his mother. I asked, "What about what it means to me?" He looked tired. "Nora, please, it's one night. It is never one night." People say that when they want you to ignore a pattern by reducing it to an event. Still, I agreed. The dinner was held at L'Auberge, a French restaurant Patricia loved because the staff remembered her wine preference and pretended not to notice when she corrected their pronunciation. She reserved the private room upstairs. White linens, silver candles, soft lighting. A long table with Patricia at one end and Ethan's father's portrait displayed on a small side table. Because even dead Carlisle men apparently needed attention. Ethan's father, William, had died before I met him. From what Ethan told me, he had been charming, unfaithful, financially reckless, and adored by Patricia in the complicated ways some women adore the men who make them suffer, because admitting harm would make the sacrifice meaningless. Patricia often said Ethan was all that remained of William's legacy. That meant my uterus had become a family project. I arrived in a dark green dress because Ethan once said it brought out my eyes. He barely noticed. He was checking his phone constantly, face tense. "You okay?" I asked. "Work stuff." "What work stuff?" "Just vendor issues. A lie has a texture if you have lived beside it long enough." This one felt smooth from overuse. Dinner began with polite conversation. Cousins asked about the clinic. An aunt told me her neighbor's daughter had frozen eggs and asked whether that meant she was still feminine. Patricia made a toast to marriage, loyalty, and the patience required when life does not give a family everything it hoped for. Ethan's hand tightened around his glass. I looked at him. He looked away, then dessert arrived. Instead of cake, Patricia had ordered a tower of cream puffs with sparklers. Everyone clapped. Ethan smiled stiffly. I felt something hollow opening inside my chest. Patricia stood. I want to say something. My body knew before my mind did. Ethan whispered. Mom. She ignored him. When my son married Nora, we welcomed her with hope. That was false. But nobody corrected her. 10 years later, our family has endured disappointment with grace. I set down my spoon, my pulse slowed. That is how I knew something serious was coming. Fear makes me fast. Betrayal makes me still. Patricia smiled at me. Some women choose careers so completely that there is nothing left for family. A cousin murmured, Patricia. She lifted her hand. No, I think truth is healthy, especially tonight. Ethan stared at the table. Patricia continued. Ethan has suffered quietly. He has wanted children. He has wanted warmth. He has wanted a wife who could give him a future instead of a clinic full of other people's babies. The room blurred at the edges. Then she said it. Everyone should know the truth. Ethan has already found someone who can give this family what Nora never could. Silence. He replaced me in 2 weeks? I asked, though my voice sounded far away. Patricia's eyes glittered. 2 weeks. That's all it took him to replace 10 years of disappointment. Someone dropped a spoon. Ethan whispered, Mom, stop. But he did not stand. He did not deny it. He did not say, Nora is not the reason. He did not say, I lied. He let the sentence sit on me, then my phone vibrated. Hannah's message, Dr. Vale, urgent. A patient file review flagged the name Ethan Carlisle. Vasectomy reversal consult from last month. Listed emergency contact, Patricia Carlisle. I read it once. Then again, the room around me became very clear. The candles, the cream puffs, Patricia's pearl earrings, Ethan's left hand still wearing the ring I had chosen, the unopened silver watch beside his plate. My father's old warning in my mind. Watch if the manners stay when he doesn't get what he wants. I slipped the phone back into my purse. I looked at Ethan. How long has she known? His face turned pale. Patricia's smile faded slightly. What? I did not look at her. I kept my eyes on my husband. How long has your mother known about the vasectomy? A sound moved through the room, not a gasp exactly. A rupture. Ethan closed his eyes. Patricia said sharply, This is private. I laughed once. The sound surprised even me. You announced my replacement to 32 people. She stepped forward. Do not twist this. I stood the chair, scraped loudly against the floor. For 7 years, I kept your son's secret. I let you call me barren, cold, selfish, career-obsessed, unnatural. I let you make jokes at holidays because he asked me not to humiliate him. Ethan whispered, Nora. No. That one word felt like a door locking. I turned to the room. My medical tests were normal. Ethan had a vasectomy before our marriage and hid it for years. When he finally told me, I protected his privacy because I believed marriage meant holding each other's shame with care. Patricia's face was white now. You have no right. I had every right the moment you used my silence as a stage. Ethan stood. Please, can we talk outside? I looked at him. Now you want privacy? He flinched. Don't do this. Do what? Tell the truth you let your mother bury me under? His voice cracked. I was going to fix it. With a reversal your mother scheduled while you replaced me? He looked down. That was the confirmation the other woman existed, not as Patricia's fantasy, as Ethan's plan. Her name, I learned later, was Camille. She was 31, a lifestyle consultant, and had been told that Ethan was basically separated from a wife who refused children. She was not innocent exactly, but she was not the architect of my pain. Patricia was, Ethan was. I picked up the silver watch box and placed it in my purse. Patricia said, That was a gift for my son. I looked at her. No. It was a gift for the man I thought he was. Then I walked out, no dramatic throwing of wine, no screaming, no collapsing. I left with my spine straight, though my knees were shaking by the time I reached the hallway. Ethan followed me. Nora, wait. I pressed the elevator button. He touched my arm. I stepped back. Do not. His hand dropped. I panicked. I stared at him. That's your whole biography. His face twisted. I didn't mean for tonight to happen like that, but you meant for it to happen. He said nothing. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. He followed. I held up a hand. No, you stayed at the table. Stay there. The doors closed between us. That night, I did not go home. I drove to my clinic. The building was dark except for the security lights in the lobby and the glow from Hannah's office. She was there, of course. Hannah believed sleep was something people with less paperwork enjoyed. When she saw me, she stood. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I sat in the chair across from her desk. Tell me only what you're legally allowed to tell me. That sentence mattered. Even destroyed, I was still a doctor. Even betrayed, I would not use patient privacy as a weapon. Hannah nodded. We have a conflict issue involving a patient with a personal relationship to you. Your name was not attached to the treating side. You did not access the file. I locked it as soon as I recognized the conflict. Did Patricia have authorization? No. Did she attempt to obtain information? Yes, twice. Once by phone. Once through email using language suggesting she was coordinating family planning. My stomach turned. Family planning. Anita slid printed incident report across the desk. Not the medical file, the incident report. It included Patricia's call, staff response, compliance notes, and a quote from her insult about my clinic and motherhood. I read it silently. Hannah said, "There's more, but it's not from the file." She opened a separate folder. Patricia sent a complaint to the state medical board 3 weeks ago. My head lifted. What? She alleged that Vail Reproductive Health has a pattern of pressuring male patients into unnecessary procedures and that you have an emotional bias due to your own infertility. I stared at her. My own infertility? Yes. Was it accepted? It triggered a preliminary inquiry. Our attorney responded with standard documentation. No action yet. The timing hit me all at once. The reversal consult, the complaint, the anniversary dinner, the replacement. This was not random cruelty. This was preparation. If Ethan's reversal worked, if Camille became pregnant, Patricia could present a new future while framing me as defective and professionally unstable. If I objected, they could claim I was bitter because of infertility. If I mentioned the vasectomy, they could say I violated patient privacy because Ethan was connected to my clinic. They had built a trap using my ethics as the cage. I felt cold to the bone. Hannah watched me carefully. What do you want to do? I thought of the women who came into my clinic, afraid their husbands would blame them. The men afraid to be tested because masculinity had been built around denial. The couples broken less by diagnosis than by shame. Then I thought of myself at Patricia's table, holding 7 years of someone else's secret while they used it to carve me open. I want to do everything correctly, I said. Hannah almost smiled. That's why they're going to lose. The next morning, I hired 2 attorneys, one for divorce, one for medical board and privacy matters. My divorce attorney, Celine Marks, was blunt enough to feel medicinal. After I told her the story, she removed her glasses and said, "Your husband allowed his mother to publicly accuse you of infertility while he pursued fertility restoration through your clinic network and listed her as emergency contact, yes. And there is another woman? Yes. And your mother-in-law filed a professional complaint implying emotional bias due to the infertility she knew was not yours? Yes." Celine leaned back. People underestimate the legal consequences of being dramatic in writing. That was the first time I smiled in 24 hours. We filed for divorce 3 days later. Grounds were not theatrical. Cruelty, misrepresentation, financial and emotional misconduct, marital breach. We requested preservation of communications between Ethan, Patricia, and any third parties related to fertility, medical complaints, defamation, and asset concealment. Asset concealment became relevant sooner than expected. Because while I had built Vail Reproductive Health, Ethan had built debt, credit lines, investment losses. Loans Patricia had covered with conditions, a failed medical device startup he had hidden from me under a consulting shell company. He had been using his image as the supportive husband of a successful fertility doctor to attract investors. And Patricia, always hungry for legacy, had pushed him toward Camille because Camille's father owned a private maternity wellness brand looking for medical partnerships. There it was, not just a baby, a business move. My empty womb had been their family tragedy. Camille's potential pregnancy was a merger opportunity. Celine uncovered messages through discovery that I will never forget. Patricia to Ethan, once Camille is carrying, Nora loses the sympathy card. Ethan, she'll fight. Patricia, let her. She built a clinic around motherhood but couldn't manage her own house. People will understand Ethan. What about the vasectomy? Patricia, no one needs that ugliness. After the reversal, history becomes irrelevant. History becomes irrelevant. I printed that message and put it in a blue folder, not lavender, blue. My folder. The next major confrontation happened at the medical board mediation. Patricia's complaint had not been dismissed immediately because complaints involving reproductive ethics are taken seriously as they should be. I did not resent the process. I respected it. But Patricia arrived as if she were attending a trial she had already won. She wore cream. Of course she did. People like Patricia wear cream to suggest innocence and hire lawyers to do the rest. Ethan sat beside her, looking tired and smaller than I remembered. His wedding ring was gone. Mine had been off since the restaurant. Across the table sat the board mediator, my attorney for the clinic, Hannah, and me. The mediator began. Mrs. Carlisle, you allege that Dr. Vale's clinic demonstrates bias against male fertility patients and that procedures may be influenced by personal emotional history. Do you have evidence? Patricia folded her hands. I have years of observation. Dr. Vale's inability to have children created a certain atmosphere. My attorney, David Lynn, wrote something down. The mediator said, observation is not evidence. Patricia's smile tightened. I am speaking as family. I said quietly, that has been the problem. She looked at me with pure hatred. Then she made her mistake. She said, my son was vulnerable when he sought treatment. I believe Dr. Vale's clinic exploited that. The mediator looked up. Your son sought treatment at Vale Reproductive Health? Ethan's face went gray. Patricia realized too late what she had done. David Lynn said, for the record, Dr. Vale has never accessed or participated in any treatment record involving Mr. Carlisle. The clinic identified the conflict internally, restricted the file, and reported an attempted unauthorized information request from Mrs. Carlisle. He slid the incident report forward. Additionally, Mrs. Carlisle was not an authorized party and attempted to obtain information about a patient's reproductive procedure while using insulting language about Dr. Vale's personal fertility. Patricia said, that is taken out of context. Hannah said, it is a direct transcript from a recorded clinic line. Patricia stopped. The mediator read silently, then David placed another document on the table. This is Mrs. Carlisle's complaint submitted 3 weeks after her unauthorized call, alleging Dr. Vale's emotional bias based on infertility. We also have discovery communications indicating Mrs. Carlisle and Mr. Carlisle knew Dr. Vale was not the source of the couple's fertility barrier. Ethan closed his eyes. The mediator looked at Patricia. Mrs. Carlisle, did you knowingly submit a complaint containing misleading personal claims? Patricia lifted her chin. I submitted concerns. No, I said. Everyone turned to me. My voice was calm. You submitted punishment. For once, Patricia had no elegant answer. The complaint was dismissed. But more importantly, the board referred Patricia's false statements and unauthorized access attempts to legal review. My clinic's compliance protocols were praised. Hannah cried in the parking lot afterward, which terrified me because Hannah only cried at freezer failures and dog videos. I'm so angry, she said, wiping her face. I know. No, Nora. I sat there listening to her talk about you, like you were some bitter woman hurting male patients, and all I could think was how many men you've helped walk through shame without feeling small. That broke me. I cried then too, not because Patricia lost. Because someone who knew my work defended the part of me my own family had mocked. The divorce mediation was worse, not legally, emotionally. Ethan asked to speak to me alone before we began. Celine said no immediately. Then she looked at me and added, but it's your call. I agreed to 5 minutes with the door open and attorneys nearby. He looked different, less polished. Camille was gone by then. According to Celine, she had ended things after discovering the real timeline and the medical secrecy. Apparently, being cast as the fertile replacement in a family inheritance drama was not the fairy tale Patricia had promised. Ethan stood by the window. I never wanted to hurt you like this, he said. I almost laughed. People keep saying that after designing very specific ways to hurt me. He nodded, ashamed. Camille was a mistake. No, Camille was a symptom. He swallowed. I was scared you'd leave if I told everyone. I stayed after you told me. You stayed, but I could feel you looking at me differently. Because you lied for years. I know, do you? His eyes filled. I hated that you knew. I hated needing your expertise. I hated walking into your world as the broken one. There it is. What? The truth. Not fear, pride. He wiped his face. My mother said if I had the reversal and started over, I could become who I was supposed to be. And who was I supposed to be? He looked at me. I don't know anymore. That answer hurt more than an insult. Because it was honest. He did not know who I was outside his failure. I said, you let me become the villain in your story because you were too ashamed to be human in mine. He cried then. I did not comfort him. I had carried his shame long enough. During mediation, Patricia's control cracked completely. She arrived with a strategy. Portray me as cold, career-obsessed, reputation-driven, and financially punitive. Celine arrived with documents, bank records, the medical board dismissal. The anniversary dinner witness statements, restaurant staff testimony, confirming Patricia's public announcement, screenshots from family group chats where relatives mocked my supposed infertility, and the message that ended the room. Patricia. After the reversal, history becomes irrelevant. Celine read it aloud slowly, then she looked at Ethan. Mr. Carlyle, did your wife ever consent to being publicly blamed for the absence of children in your marriage? No. Did you know the primary fertility barrier was connected to your prior vasectomy? Yes. Did you allow your family to believe otherwise? Yes. Did your mother know? He hesitated. Patricia snapped, Ethan. He looked at her. Something shifted. Maybe Camille leaving had done it. Maybe the medical board humiliation. Maybe he was finally tired. Yes, he said. She knew. Patricia went still. Celine continued. How long? Ethan's voice was barely audible. Years. Patricia whispered, don't do this. He turned toward her. You did it. For 1 second I saw the boy in him, not the husband, not the liar. The son trained to believe his mother's approval was oxygen. He was still weak, still guilty. But in that moment, he told one truth without asking me to pay for it. It did not save our marriage. Nothing could. But it's saved me the labor of proving what they had finally admitted. The settlement was clean. I kept my clinic entirely. Ethan had no claim. My ownership structure had been protected from the beginning by agreements he once mocked as unromantic. He assumed successful women were too sentimental to protect assets. He was wrong. He took his debts. I kept the house after buying out the small marital portion tied to renovations. Patricia was barred from contacting me or my clinic. Ethan signed a statement acknowledging that he had allowed false narratives about my fertility to circulate and that no professional misconduct occurred at Vale Reproductive Health. That statement mattered, not because I planned to frame it, because lies spread in whispers, but corrections need signatures. The family fallout came slowly. At first, the Carlisles rallied around Patricia. They always did. She told them I had violated Ethan's privacy, destroyed the family, and used legal tricks because I could not handle being replaced. Then Aunt Beatrice asked one question in the family group chat. If Ethan had the vasectomy, why did we all blame Nora? Nobody answered. Then Cousin Leah wrote, Mom, said Patricia told her years ago. Then someone else said, wait, Patricia knew. Screenshots came to me through people I barely knew. I did not ask for them, I did not need them, but they came anyway. Because families love truth most when it becomes gossip. Patricia lost her favorite currency, moral authority. She still had money, still had the house, still had friends who said things like both sides. But when she entered rooms, people no longer gave her the first version of the story. That is a consequence people underestimate. Being doubted. For someone like Patricia, it was almost worse than being hated. Ethan moved into a rented apartment near his office. He sent me one letter 6 months after the divorce finalized. Nora, I have started therapy. I know that does not repair what I did. I am writing because my therapist asked me what I stole from you, and I could not stop writing. I stole time. I stole truth. I stole your right to be defended. I stole the possibility of grief without blame. I stole your name in rooms where I should have protected it. I am sorry. Ethan, I read the letter once, then I placed it in the blue folder. I did not respond. Some apologies deserve acknowledgement. Some only deserve storage. As for children, that question changed shape. For years, motherhood had been turned into a courtroom where I was always on trial. After the divorce, I needed silence around that part of myself. Real silence, not secrecy, rest. I took a month away from clinical practice and let my partners cover patient care. For the first time in years, I woke up without counting cycle days, appointment slots, legal deadlines, or family expectations. I painted my kitchen yellow badly. Hannah came over, stared at the streaky wall and said, You are a brilliant physician and a criminal painter. We laughed until I cried. My father visited with a toolbox and fixed the uneven cabinet Ethan had promised to repair for 4 years. He did not mention the divorce unless I did. He just worked quietly, then made tea. One evening, while we sat on the porch, he said, I wanted to break Ethan's jaw. Dad, I didn't growth. I laughed, then he became serious. I should have said more over the years. You didn't know everything. I knew enough to dislike how small you got after family dinners. That sentence stayed with me. Sometimes love is not perfect protection. Sometimes it is a witness who regrets arriving late and then refuses to look away again. A year after the restaurant humiliation, Vale Reproductive Health hosted its annual Patient Gratitude Evening. We did not call it a gala because I hate galas. It was just a warm event in the clinic garden with string lights, lemonade, tiny sandwiches, and families who wanted to stop by. Some came with babies, some came without babies, some came after choosing to stop treatment. All were honored. That was important to me. Successes in my clinic was never only pregnancy. Sometimes success was a couple learning the truth and staying kind. Sometimes it was a woman deciding her body had endured enough. Sometimes it was a man finally crying in a consultation room because nobody had ever told him infertility did not make him less worthy. At the end of the evening, Hannah handed me a microphone. I glared at her. She whispered, "Just say thank you." I stood under the lights, looking out at staff, patients, partners, friends, my father in the back, pretending not to be emotional. I said, "This clinic was built on one belief. No one should be shamed for a medical truth. Not women, not men, not couples. Not people who become parents, not people who don't, not people whose families understand, not people whose families never will." My voice shook a little. For years, I forgot that belief applied to me too. Hannah wiped her eyes. I continued. "So if you are carrying someone else's shame because they convinced you love required silence, I hope you hear this clearly. Privacy protects dignity. Secrecy protects lies. Learn the difference before it costs you years." People clapped, not wildly, gently, the kind of applause that feels less like noise and more like hands holding something fragile. Afterward, a woman approached me near the garden gate. She was maybe 38, wearing a blue dress and a nervous smile. "You don't know me," she said. "I was at L'Auberge that night." My stomach tightened. She quickly added, "I'm sorry, I was one of Ethan's cousins." I didn't say anything. I should have. I did not rescue her from the discomfort. She swallowed. "My husband and I are starting testing next month." He didn't want to go. After what happened, I told him I would not carry blame alone. He agreed. That almost undid me. "I'm glad," I said. She nodded. "Your truth helped me ask for mine." That night, after everyone left, I walked through the clinic alone. The lights were dim. The exam rooms were clean. The lavender folders were locked where they belonged. On my office shelf sat the blue folder, the one with the restaurant messages, the apology letter, the signed statement, and my father's old warning written on a sticky note, because I had finally told him he was right. Watch if the manners stay when he doesn't get what he wants. I thought about Patricia saying Ethan replaced me in 2 weeks. In one way, she was right. He found someone else quickly, but he did not replace me. You cannot replace the person who carried your truth, paid the emotional cost of your cowardice, built the life you bragged beside, and then walked away with the one thing your family never expected her to keep. Her name. I was not replaced. I was released. There is a difference. Patricia tried once more, 2 years later. She sent a handwritten letter to my clinic, not my home. Of course she did. She wanted the building to feel her presence. "Dr. Vale, whatever happened between us, I hope you understand I wanted grandchildren." That desire made me harsh. A mother wants her son's life to continue. Patricia Carlisle, no apology. Just a desire wearing a costume. I wrote back on clinic letterhead, "Mrs. Carlisle, wanting grandchildren does not excuse cruelty, defamation, medical privacy violations, or the public humiliation of another woman. Please direct all future communication to counsel Dr. Nora Vale." I stared at the signature for a long time. Dr. Nora Vale, not Mrs. Carlisle, not Ethan's wife, not Patricia's disappointment. A month later, I received news through Celine that Ethan's reversal had failed. I expected to feel something sharp, satisfaction maybe, or pity. Instead, I felt sad, not for the marriage, not for Patricia. For all the years wasted because one man believed a medical fact made him unworthy, and one mother believed another woman's humiliation could restore his pride. That is the tragedy under the revenge. So many people would rather build a lie than sit quietly with pain, and lies are expensive. They cost trust first, then time, then love, then if you keep feeding them, they cost your future. I never had children with Ethan. I need to say that plainly because people always ask, as if the ending only counts if a baby appears. My life did not become meaningful because I became a mother after all. My life was meaningful when I was married and hurting. It was meaningful when I was childless and blamed. It was meaningful when I was building a clinic at midnight, holding patients' hands, painting my kitchen badly, drinking tea with my father, signing my own name. Maybe I will become a mother one day. Maybe through adoption. Maybe through donor options. Maybe not. But I am no longer willing to define my womanhood by someone else's family tree. Near the end of every consultation now, when couples sit across from me afraid of what testing might reveal, I tell them a softer version of my truth. Information is not the enemy, I say. Shame is. Some people cry when they hear that. Some people hold hands for the first time in the appointment. Some people look away because they are not ready. I understand all three. If you have ever been blamed for something you did not cause, especially by people who knew the truth, you know how deep that wound goes. It makes you question your memory, your kindness, your right to defend yourself. So let me ask you something. If someone you loved let their family shame you for years just to protect their own pride, would you expose the truth publicly? Or would you walk away quietly? I used to think walking away quietly was always the dignified choice. Now I think dignity sometimes needs a witness, not revenge for revenge's sake, not cruelty. Just enough truth spoken in the room where the lie was celebrated, because the people who benefit from your silence will call your honesty betrayal. Let them. They were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the version of you they could use. Patricia said her son replaced me in 2 weeks. But 2 weeks after that dinner, the medical board dismissed her complaint. Ethan admitted the truth under oath, and the family finally learned who had been carrying the shame that never belonged to her. I did not destroy their family. I returned their secret to its owners. And for the first time in 10 years, I went home, unlocked my own door, and felt no need to make myself smaller before stepping inside.